Welcome to Politics for Happy People. So glad that you are with us. I'm Joseph Backholm, joined again, as always, by Ashley Vaughan. Ashley, how's summer treating you?
Plugging along. We're having a good summer. Lots of lazy days, playing cards, going to the pool. Yeah. It's awesome.
I feel like the North Carolina drought is over.
It is. Officially, we're calling it.
Are we calling it, or has somebody who actually knows what they're talking about
called it?
No,
I have no idea.
Well, there's been so much water, and I've been grateful for that. We are now mowing our lawn every 36 hours in the greenhouse that North Carolina becomes in the summer when it is wet. But it is better that we have water. Today on the program, we're not really going to talk about weather. We are going to talk about whether Roy Cooper is really a moderate, and whether your 11-year-old is betting on sports or not. Those are a couple of our topics, because not only is it summer, that means our kids are out of school and we're doing fun things, hopefully, but it's also election season. But kind of, when is it never election season?
These days, it always feels like it's election season, but it does become more intense.
Yeah, well,
as we approach November.
As we approach November, the candidates are starting to ramp up their campaigns. And everyone's favorite folksy ex-governor is running for, is that a fair description? Everyone's favorite folksy ex-governor is running for the U.S. Senate. Roy Cooper, of course, is who we are referring to, and most people probably recognize that immediately. But there seems to be a bit of a disagreement about who Roy Cooper is. Before we get into the details of this, and obviously you kind of know where we're going with this today.
I do.
What is your impression of other people's impression of Roy Cooper?
My impression of other people's impression, like the general public, he is mild-mannered and kind and just basically all around unoffensive. I think that's how people view him in general, you know?
Does that mean his ads have been very effective?
I think that's you mean his ads for this current campaign?
In general, right? He's run so many ads, right? It's not like he's a new guy.
Is it his ads, or is it just? I mean, he's appeared in public many times. I think it's a personality.
He's been the governor,
right? I think it's a person. I think it's his personality that people kind of like, and it's calming and kind of Andy Griffith kind of. Oh, this guy seems like a really nice guy, and if you're not really into politics, or just kind of a average person trying to do all the things that people do, go to work, take care of your kids, all that, not a politico, you may not be aware of some of his policies. Yeah.
Well, I've never met Roy Cooper, but what you described there is actually how he has been described to me, by people who have met him, even though they disagree with him politically, that he actually is a pretty nice guy. And of course, he's got so much history. He was the attorney general for 16 years.
Yes.
And then he was the governor from 2017 to 2025. Now he is running for the U.S. Senate. And he's 68 years old now, so he's got all this experience. He's been in the public eye in the state for a very long time, and he's kind of like Grandpa Roy. And, how we are describing him right now, frankly, is exactly how he wants us to see him, and how he wants the world to see him. And we actually got a couple ads to kind of represent this, and as we tell the story about Roy Cooper. And let's see if we can play these. We've got the first one, kind of his, what are we going to call this? This is the Football and Farms ad. Do we have that available that we can throw up real quickly? And just let people see this.
I grew up working on this farm. Mom was a teacher. Dad, a small-town lawyer and farmer. Fridays were football. Sunday was church. I'm Roy Cooper. Life felt easier back then. I'm running for the Senate to make life easier today. To go after insurance companies ripping you off. To make sure you can retire with dignity. And to build an economy that finally values working people. I approve this message because it's time to get it done.
That's kind of hard to disagree with, right?
Right.
He likes football, he likes church, and he wants to make life more affordable. Who can oppose that, Ashley?
It's hard. It is hard to disagree with. I don't know, the church part's a little bit interesting.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the details of that.
Yeah.
But that was the first ad that his campaign formally released. And the second is him talking about public safety. And it's interesting that, the ad that we just watched there doesn't really deal with issues. He mentions affordability. We want to make life more affordable. And that's something that people care about because inflation has become a real problem. Inflation rates are now down, but the damage has been done in many ways. Expenses are up from where they were 5 years ago by a lot. And that's pinching a lot of people. Homes seem unachievable for a huge segment of the population, and he's kind of identifying that problem. But this next issue that he takes on in this ad is public safety. And let's hear how he does that. Go ahead and play that.
Keep your family safe and lock up criminals. That's what most North Carolinians want, and it's not too much to ask. As your Attorney General, I put drug dealers, rapists, and murderers in prison and kept them there. As your governor, I toughened bail laws, went after drug dealers pushing fentanyl, and said, no way do we defund the police. I'm Roy Cooper, and I approve this message because you deserve to feel safe, and there's nothing political about that.
So
This one bothers me more.
Tell me why.
Because I mean, I don't think that he was, I do think he was soft on crime. I don't think that he was as much of a friend to the police and the justice system as he's trying to make it out to be.
Well, he was Attorney General, and I have no doubt that it is true that he put people in prison, right? Because that's when
Of course.
And that's what he's referring to. And attorneys general are perceived, at least they should be, and historically have been, as people who are enforcing the law, because that's their job title. But Roy Cooper is actually pretty vulnerable on the public safety issue because of some things that happened while he was governor.
Right.
And let's talk about this for a moment, because in 2021, he settled a lawsuit, and there was a lawsuit brought against the state of North Carolina for cruel and unusual punishment because they were holding convicts during COVID. This was, and we all remember COVID, and I think blissfully in some ways, like our memories of COVID are starting to fade a little bit, and what an absolutely insane time that was.
The panic and hysteria, like when you remember back, there was true panic and hysteria over COVID and the possibility of getting it and social distancing and like
stand
what a
6 feet
horrible
apart.
person you are if you get anywhere close to another human being. It was a crazy time.
Outdoors in a park by yourself is going to save your life.
Yeah.
I have vivid memories of being in national parks during COVID with my children and we did not wear masks when we were walking around in national parks in nature. And we would encounter other groups coming the opposite direction who were masked, and they would flee like we were throwing Ebola on people. They would flee off the trail as we walked by. It was like we were like royalty, and they were our subjects, and they could not be in our presence, and they would run from it.
How about the people that would be driving alone in their car wearing a mask?
Yes. Okay, the hysteria of this,
Yeah.
right? So we have to take a moment
Take us
and go
back to remember this time
and
period.
we don't really want to, but for these purposes, as we discuss Roy Cooper's law enforcement history, it kind of actually matters because he's governor.
Mm-hmm.
During this time, the state is sued for cruel and unusual punishment. North Carolina's Constitution, as well as the U.S. Constitution, forbids it. And these groups claimed that closely crowded conditions in prisons during a pandemic violated the constitutional rights of the state's approximately 30,000 prisoners, requested the remedy, and they demanded in the lawsuit a reduction of the prison population. So this is the lawsuit. Roy Cooper, as governor, agreed to a settlement of this lawsuit. And part of that settlement was they released 3,500 prisoners. And their defense was, and I believe this to be true, in fact, that several of them were going to be released anyway, like soon. They got released a little bit early, but 51 of them came off death row. 51 of those people came off death row. And we know for sure that 25 North Carolinians have been killed by the people who were released in that lawsuit settlement because they might be hurt by the coronavirus. So they got released into the general public, and they've killed 25 people. And 99 have been sexually assaulted by that group. More than 600 felonies charged against the people who were released in that. Governor Cooper also commuted the sentence of 15 people. So that's Roy Cooper as governor. And the public knows some of that. And I'm sure some people are hearing this maybe for the first time. But he is actually kind of vulnerable on the public health issue. And we know but he goes in that ad to basically make the point that, I would never want to defund the police. And I'm not aware right now of anything in his record that says otherwise.
I don't think I'm not aware of him advocating for defunding the police. Of course, that's extreme, right? That's very radical, progressive. And yet,
but the party was there. And I don't think as a party they are there now enthusiastically because the public is not for that.
Exactly. Yes. The summer of George Floyd.
But during the COVID hysteria.
And riots and all of that. They were saying that. And there's something else from this time period that's bad on Roy Cooper, which is that in 2020, as a response to the death of George Floyd, he and Anita Earls and Josh Stein, who was then the Attorney General, now the governor, they established the Task Force for Racial Equity in Social Justice. And this task force, the purpose was to recommend solutions to end disparate outcomes in the criminal justice system, mitigate the effects of bias and discrimination, and increase accountability in law enforcement and criminal justice.
Yeah.
So,
and on its face, none of that is problematic. We don't want bias in the system.
We don't, but listen to the recommendations that the task force came out with. Eliminating cash bail for misdemeanors unless they're a risk to public safety, decriminalizing felony drug possession, decriminalizing minor crimes like trespassing and shoplifting, requiring equity training for prosecutors and implicit bias training for parole officers and jury system actors, raising the minimum age of juvenile court to 12 years, it's currently 6, eliminating enhanced sentencing requirements for habitual felons, allowing judges to reduce sentences for previously prosecuted cases based on good behavior, and prohibiting the death penalty for anyone under 21. Right now, anyone 18 years or older can receive the death penalty. So this is across the board. What you would say is these are more lenient policies, and they're all being put into place because they were trying to end disparate outcomes in the criminal justice system based on race.
Disparate is a legal term, which means the outcomes are different across
different
groups, identity categories, and in this case, it's almost certainly referring to racial categories, where there are.
Well, it's a task force for racial equity.
For racial, right, and
So that's
some of the recommendations that you listed there, and you have the list in front of me. I don't, but when you talk about like cashless bail, right?
Eliminating cashless bail, eliminating cash bail. Yes.
Yeah, eliminating cash bail. So we're just going to bail you even without having anything on the line. So will you come back? Maybe not. Not prosecuting was not felonies on the theft charges. What was that? What was that recommendation?
Decriminalizing felony drug possession, decriminalizing minor crimes like trespassing and shoplifting.
Yes, and that's what in like my hometown kind of Seattle and San Francisco, and you hear about like the mobs that have gone into those cities, and like the kids learn, hey, this isn't even a crime anymore, and so they just go in and take everything. And retail centers in some of these major cities have been gutted because the businesses are like, you made taking all of our stuff legal. There's no consequence for coming into our store and stealing everything. Nobody's trying to stop it. Word got out. All the criminals are now taking all of our stuff. We can't do business here. So they close up shop and they leave. right? So those recommendations from that task force, thankfully, have not been implemented broadly in North Carolina. Those were recommendations for a woke task force. The General Assembly is not woke, so they did not take the recommendations. But there are places where these recommendations have been implemented, and it has not made life better. But
So he said in that ad, though, he toughened bail laws as governor. And here we've got this task force, this 2020 task force, where he's doing the opposite. Evidently, later on, he did sign House Bill 252, which did strengthen the bail procedures. But, of course, we've all heard about Irina Zarutska, who was murdered by someone who was a 14-time offender. Exactly. So, when you're being more lenient and then things like that happen, it's a real problem.
Right.
And then you're campaigning as someone who is, back the blue, tough on crime. But then when you look into the details, he's had some real missteps on that. This is not the story. When you look at the chain of events, it tells a different story than what his ad is saying.
But it also helps us understand why his first ad, where he really tackles an issue, is public safety. Because he's aware of this record.
Right.
He knows where he's going to be targeted by the Whatley campaign. And certainly they're raising some of these issues.
Of course.
And so he's trying to get out in front of that and be the tough on crime guy, because I was the attorney general for 16 years. And, is it going to work? That's the thing the voters are going to, try to describe. But every campaign is, presenting yourself in the way you want to be seen. And this is, of course, why he's doing it. But it's a real vulnerability. But I want to also get into the first ad and this whole football and church guy. Mm-hmm. Because while Governor Cooper was Governor Cooper, he vetoed a lot of bills that the legislature, the Republican legislature, passed. And let's read through some of these, because some of them on issues that we at the NC Values Coalition care a lot about, dealing with gender issues and life issues. On the life issues, there was a Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act, which required care for infants if they were born alive after an abortion. Legislature passed that. And probably people are aware of these situations. They are rare, but they do happen, where a baby is born after an attempted abortion.
This happened recently in Georgia.
Yes. And many states have passed laws saying, hey, if the baby's born alive, you have to treat it like it's an alive person and you have to give it care.
Because it is.
Because it is, obviously. Governor Cooper vetoed that bill, saying, quote, it doesn't happen, end quote, except when it does. He did not say that part, but that's what everybody else is thinking, right? Because it does happen.
You can't veto that bill and say, actually, I want the baby to let's just let it die. So we're going to veto it and say, oh, I'm vetoing it because this never happens.
But yay, church.
Okay, Joseph. Christians disagree about a whole lot of things. Yeah. I don't know many Christians who are okay with abortion or infanticide.
Well, certainly not infanticide. I actually know too many who I would say are okay with abortion.
Really?
Oh, yeah. But again, I'm from Washington, and you're from North Carolina, right? So this is not an issue within the church, and statistically, the tragedy is
to me,
that there's a lot of abortions in the church.
Issue one for the church.
Well, yes, but there are a lot of, and now we're going to, we risk veering off into the whole syncretism of, of the church in America, where we are being shaped as much by the culture as we are shaping it. And so I don't think those are reconcilable positions, but there are a lot of Christians who are trying to reconcile those. And we also know that there's a lot of people who they're pro-life until they get pregnant. And that's a tragedy within the church of, I'm against abortion except for my own, because in my circumstances it's justified. And tragically, a lot of Christians have made that decision, and there's a lot of, trying to protect your image and self-righteousness and trying to hide your sin and all the things like that. But that is a tragic reality. We have to disciple ourselves out of that. But yes, I know people who claim to be Christians, and may well be, in fact, but this is an issue, I think, where it's inconsistent. But that is not the majority position in the church, and a lot of people will see that and say, oh, you're the church guy, yet you don't want to provide medical treatment to babies who are born after an attempted abortion.
Well, and
that's going to hit most people wrong.
Other vetoes here too. The Human Life Non-Discrimination Act, which banned abortions based on race, sex, or Down syndrome, vetoed that. Vetoed SB 20, the 12-week abortion ban that had additional restrictions and safety for women.
And he held a rally to veto that bill, which of course the legislature ultimately overrode the veto. But yes,
I can't.
Or the 12.
I mean, from where I sit, it's very hard to square that with. I want to go back to a time where we all just meet up in church, and yet you're vetoing bills.
Correct.
Not one, multiple bills meant to protect life, protect image bearers from being destroyed inside and outside of the womb.
Right.
That is, I can't reconcile that in my mind.
A lot of people will share that. Let's also talk about the gender issues. The Fairness in Women's Sports Act. This would keep biological males out of girls' women's school and college sports. He vetoed that. The
That
ban
didn't age well.
Well, no, it did not, right? I mean, and that is now like a 70-30, 80-20 issue in America.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of moderates, there's a lot of Democrats who don't think boys should be playing sports with girls.
Yeah.
The ban that we have in North Carolina on sex disfigurement, reassignment, whatever term you want to use, procedures on children.
Procedures with the intent to transition gender.
Puberty blockers, hormones,
Medical,
and surgeries
and
for
surgical.
children has been banned. When that bill was passed, Governor Veto. That was
We'll slip.
yes, it was a slip, but maybe an appropriate one. Governor Cooper vetoed that bill. And again, that is a 80-20, 70-30 position in America. Don't do that to children.
Right.
The Parents' Bill of Rights limited classroom instruction on gender and sexuality in early grades, required parental notification on name and pronoun changes, positions that the vast majority of Americans agree with. Cooper, as governor, vetoed those, but yay, church.
Well, the first ad we watched, the whole thing is supposed to make him just seem really friendly, down home. Let's go to an easier time, just church and football. And yet you're vetoing bills that the Parents' Bill of Rights intended to give parents the right and the ability to be involved and to know what their children are being taught in schools. That bill allows parents to see the curriculum that their children are being taught. Tell me how that's a bad thing. I mean, that is a basic expectation for me as a parent, that you would let me see what you are teaching my child. Things like you have to notify a parent if the child's name or pronouns are being changed at school. That is such a no-brainer. I mean, can you imagine your child going to school and they're living like a different life at school, and the school is conspiring to keep this information from you? And it sounds crazy, but it actually is happening in other states. There have been lawsuits about this. There's a lawsuit in California ongoing about this, the school keeping the fact that the child was living with a different gender at school from the parents. So that's what this bill was meant to prevent, and it's the law now, and it is preventing it. But
despite the veto.
Well, he vetoed it, and then the General Assembly overrode his veto. But that's what he's saying he's against. He's against involving parents in intimate decisions in their children's lives.
And let's reconcile these as we do try to think like Christians about these things. The reason this is problematic is because the creation order that God created is he created different institutions, and he created the family, and he created the church, and he created the government, right? Those are different institutions that all serve purposes that God gave to them. The purpose, one of the things within the jurisdiction of the family is to raise children, right? And that means the parents are the ones who are in charge of what's going on with the kids. The parents have a creation order natural right to know what's going on in the lives of their children. And it is not appropriate for the government to intervene when the parents have not been found to be unfit. And that's something that like virtually every parent on all sides of political issues, that sounds true, right? We understand it. It feels true. And the reason is because that's how God kind of organized things. And it is a dissonance for Governor Cooper to say, yay church, yay God, yay the world he created, but the government is going to overrule the parents if we think the parents, if we don't like what the parents are going to do, and they want to be involved in their child's like identity crisis. And so those are not reconcilable positions in my mind. And I think the supermajority of certainly people in the church and a significant percentage of people outside the church would agree with that. But that's kind of the tension that Governor Cooper is going to is dealing with. Is he's got this record of doing things that are really inconsistent with a creation order view of the world, and also inconsistent with the voters. But he needs to be portrayed as,
well, this information needs
church
to get out there, because if all people are seeing is the ad, football, church, I'm a nice, likable guy, but they don't know about vetoing Parents' Bill of Rights, vetoing all of these things that are basically common sense to many people. We're going to keep boys out of girls' sports.
Right. And the wildly popular opportunity scholarships.
Oh, yeah.
Vetoed by Governor Cooper. Right?
Veto.
And maybe I'll just go with that, right? Because there's just so many examples of these. But yes, again, do parents want to have educational choices? They do. Does the government bureaucracy want to have choices? They do not. And Governor Cooper was with the bureaucracy against the parents on that issue as well. And I want to, this is, we're kind of used to duplicity from politicians, I think. And so part of us is, we yawn. It's like, say one thing, do another. We're kind of used to that. But this is a situation where voters are going to make another decision about who's going to be the U.S. senator. And one person is going to tell us that they're moderate right down the road. They love church, God, and football just like you do. And if you're not aware of the history, you might end up being persuaded.
Yeah, I'm not yawning over duplicity. Maybe I should be by this point, but I think that's it. Yeah. I mean, who are you even? I mean, if you change your position so radically from 2020 to now.
Well, I don't think he's changed his position. He's just
lying
saying
about
what he
it
thinks.
now.
Well, and let's look for a very recent example of this, right? Okay. Abigail Spanberger to the north in Virginia. Same deal. Folksy, moderate, suburban mom, there's nothing radical about her, right? And that was at least her campaign, and she won on that platform. Let's run through a handful of things that she did after running as a moderate. Immediately, redistricting during her campaign, she said she had, quote, no plans to redraw Virginia's congressional map, but immediately after becoming governor, redrew a map, and that would have given the Democrats a 10-11 edge, or a 10-1 edge, giving them 10 of the seats of the 11 in Virginia. Said, I'm not going to do that. And then immediately turns around and does it. Immigration, on her first day as governor, rescinded the previous executive order that required state law enforcement to cooperate with ICE, with immigration enforcement. So we're no longer going to enforce the crime. We're not going to cooperate. We're not going to deport people who are here illegally. This is just a common play. We're not going to go through her entire record, but this is a really common.
The point you're making, though, is that it's kind of like I'm running as a moderate, bait and switch.
That's because America is not far left. The Democratic Party is far left, and that's the challenge for people who are trying to get elected, is they have to convince the public. This, Joe Biden did this in 2020, right? And he was running against Trump, and Trump was, of course, very polarizing. But it's the same thing. It's Grandpa Joe. Let me run as the, church grandpa, Catholic church Grandpa Joe. Who doesn't like that, right? But his administration is run by absolute, a bunch of drag queens and radicals on the left. And that's the reality of it. And this is not a new pattern. You just have to recognize when it's happened, because, crazy people don't win on the ballot if they're obviously crazy, because America is not with that. And so the left has been pretty effective at finding people who don't look like that It's why they're running James Tallarico for the Senate in Texas. He's not going to win, but it's the same. Oh, you've got a theology. You went to seminary. You talk like a Christian, and maybe the Christians in Texas will like that. It's very strategic, and sometimes it's very effective. So, all that to say, be aware, folks, and we're going to continue to try to bring us facts, because taking every thought captive to the obedience of Christ is not being captured by headlines. It's actually understanding the reality behind the messaging, and understand you're always being manipulated in some ways.
Well, and look at what they do, not just
Correct.
what they're saying. What have they done? That is
exactly
going to
right.
be the best indicator, because as I was saying, he would have us believe that he's changed and on some of these issues, and he's moderate now. But that is, as you explained, that is a strategy to appeal to a broad number of people. And likely what he will do in office is going to be consistent with what he has done.
And the direction the Democratic Party is.
Exactly.
As folksy and as genuinely likable as I understand him to be, because that's what everybody seems to think when they have an interaction with him. I mean, I think that's the reality of it, right? That's what he's trying to be, and as genuinely likable as I think he is, and he'd probably be a really good neighbor. That's his voting record. He does what the party is wanting them to do. He is not a problem for the left's agenda in control of the Democratic Party, and so we had every reason to believe he would continue to support that. Last story I want to get to here before we run out of time for today is your 11-year-old gambling on sports. You have an almost 11-year-old?
9.
Okay, well, he's getting there. Common Sense Media. There's legislation here. We'll talk about this. The Game Act that has just been introduced, in Congress would prohibit advertising by social media companies of sports betting companies. And this is an opportunity to kind of, I think, become aware of some data that I think a lot of parents don't know about. January of this year, 2026, Common Sense Media released a report called Betting on Boys. And if you want to go look at it, it's easily accessible on the internet, called Betting on Boys. It surveyed more than 1,000 boys ages 11 through 17. I have one right in that window. You have one who's about to enter that window. It found that 36% of the boys gambled in the last year, with that number varying from nearly a third of 11-year-olds to half of 17-year-olds have gambled in the last year. An additional survey found of 13 to 18-year-olds found the prevalence of gambling reached 42% in that demographic. What is unsurprising, that boys gambled 2.7 times more than girls. The highest percentage of gambling onset showed between 13 and 14 years old. That's the most likely time where you're going to become a gambler, is between ages of 13 and 14 years old. Now, sports betting specifically within this population of 11 to 17-year-olds, Common Sense Media found nearly 1 in 8 boys bet on sports. Nearly 1 in 8 boys participated in traditional gambling. So both of those. And that is the data that is motivating members of Congress to tell media companies you cannot target children with your sports betting apps specifically, because it is becoming so prolific. We've seen it here in North Carolina in just the last 2-3 years. They
legalized sports
legalized
betting.
it, said go ahead and do it, and people are doing it.
This data is shocking to me. 36% of boys gambled in the last year. A third to 11-year-olds to 17-year-olds. That's really upsetting, because obviously these are formative years. This is the time in life where people are, the brain is developing, they're learning habits, and train up a child in the way they should go, and when they will not depart. It's very hard to unlearn certain types of habits, and this is a toxic habit.
To that point, train up a child in the way they should go. My son, who's currently 15, I'm aware of peers of his who are betting on sports because their parents have authorized they are signed in as their parents, and they have not only parental awareness, but it's implicit parental encouragement of sports betting habits.
So this data is showing that it's much more of a problem for boys than girls.
Does that surprise you?
It
as a girl?
doesn't surprise me, but I'm going to ask you why. Because it doesn't interest me. I've never thought to myself, oh, maybe I'm going to go place a sports bet or gamble. It doesn't interest me at all. Like, I don't understand the draw.
Well, I think that difference in part is explained by the fact that the average 15-year-old boy is much more likely to be interested in sports in general than the average 15-year-old girl.
The data shows it's just like gambling in general. Like, is it kind of like an adrenaline rush or something?
100%.
Like, is that what it is?
Yeah. I mean, have you ever bet on anything?
No.
Never. Like, you ever played poker? You know?
I mean, like for chips, not for real.
Okay. Not for
anything.
real money.
No.
Okay. Well, yes. The reason why gambling is addictive is because it is another source of a dopamine hit.
Uh-huh.
Right? And there are I understand this, and I'm no biologist, to quote Ketanji Brown Jackson. I hate to say that. Physiologically, what's happening with all of the hormones and adrenaline and
but
dopamine
it lights
hits.
up the brain.
Yeah, it lights up the right. It's the social media thing. It's the reason why it's the reason why porn is addictive. It's the reason why gambling is addictive. It chemically does some of the same things to your body as taking drugs. Right? You get these particular rushes and feelings. And I am not a degenerate gambler. I cannot honestly say I have never bet on anything, because I have. And I've actually never bet enough money where I got genuine excitement out of it. It's mostly just social and fun, and I have played cards for money with my friends. So full disclosure there, right? So that has happened. And when you win $100, is it kind of fun? Sure. Is it life-changing? No. But yes, the reason why it's addictive and the reason why there are gambling hotlines at the end of all of these sports betting ads is because you can become dependent. It's the reason why lottery tickets have always been a problem, right? There are people with low impulse control who see this as the solution to my problems. And, I had some success. It felt good. Let me go chase that feeling again, right? And it's all in the hooked on a feeling kind of a way. We're all chasing that thing that felt good. We remember that feeling good back in the past. It's how people become sex addicts as well, right? I want that feeling again. I'm going to do what gives me that. The thing that made you once, when you were happy about a $10 bet, you don't get the same rush anymore. So now I need to win $100, and pretty soon you get numb to winning $100 as well. So now I need to win $1,000, and that's how addiction starts to develop is because you need a higher intensity to give you the same feeling. That's drugs, it's sex addiction, it's porn, it's gambling, all of those things. That's how addiction works.
Children don't have the full faculties, and their brain isn't developed enough to think rationally and to have the judgment. The frontal lobe fully developed, they call it the mom.
Right.
That part of your brain that tells you, no, that's not a good idea, don't do that, even though it sounds really fun. Their brains aren't fully developed in that way, and that's why. This does sound like good legislation that's been proposed to prevent advertising of these sports betting apps and gambling opportunities on social media to children, because children they don't have that same ability that you and I do to look at an ad and say, oh, they're trying to sell me something. Like, or they have a financial incentive to get me to go down this track, and I'm not going to be fooled by that. And it's the same thing that we saw with the push to make sure that cigarettes weren't marketed to children. And even there's discussion, and we don't have, I don't think, legislation about this in this country, but they also, like in Europe, I think they have laws about not marketing like sugary cereals and like unhealthy foods to children, which
I have mixed feelings about that.
That's a little bit. I think the more
sugar
dangerous,
will kill you.
Well, the more dangerous and the more unhealthy the product is, the more I'm apt to say, we don't need to market this to kids.
Large doses of sugar will kill you. I mean, the first Snickers will not.
I'm okay with Captain Crunch.
Yeah.
That doesn't bother me too much. Parents, you need to just say no to the cute cereal boxes. Well, we don't need a law about that. However, this social media bill is, I think, a good one.
I think it's identifying a real problem. Is it going to solve anything? And here's another data point that I think says maybe no, because that Common Sense Media survey found that among boys with friends who gamble, over 8 in 10 gamble themselves, compared to under 2 in 10 boys whose friends don't gamble. So I am less inclined to think, oh, it's that DraftKings ad that somebody sent me on Snapchat that got me addicted to gambling. That may be less of a problem than it is all of my friends are talking about the bets that they put on the World Cup or the Super Bowl or whatever that is. It got me curious. Oh, that sounds fun. Now I'm going to do that.
Everyone's doing it.
Right. I think it's
you're
more
left out if you're not doing it. It's like the social contagion of it.
And I think so. I'm a little bit skeptical that an actual ban on the ads would solve the problem.
Okay.
And since the entry age, according to these surveys, is about 13 or 14 years of age. I mean, a lot of parents will be surprised by that. And there's probably a lot of people listening who have a 13 or 14-year-old in their life who may actually be doing this and they don't even know that yet. And I think, to me, this is just a great opportunity to raise awareness, as they say, of the challenge, and recognize that this is coming. It really is harmful to the lives of kids. So get in front of it, Mom and Dad.
They wouldn't
Grandma
be advertising it, though.
Ask
if
the
play
questions.
Devil's advocate, they wouldn't be advertising it if the advertisements weren't working.
Well, true. No, that's fair. That is very fair. That's why advertisement exists. But we need to make sure that our young men in particular, but our young people, understand why this is not healthy behavior, why you should not. Great opportunity to disciple them. What is the biblical way to make money? It is not gambling. It is ruling and subduing and being productive and being creative and serving others. And that's the capitalist system. And that's the virtuous way that will actually give your life significance and satisfaction, not from betting on sports.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we always bring it back to the family. That discipleship role. I mean, fathers should be talking to their sons about this. And that's where you should be getting your thoughts and what you think about gambling and sports betting. You should be getting it from your father, the men in your life, the men in your church, not just, this looks like a fun thing that I saw on social media and now I'm just going to go do it.
That's right.
Men should be, discipling the younger men to realize the harms of this.
So, boys and girls, just say no to sports betting. Thanks for joining us today, friends. Here on Politics for Happy People, quick reminder that there are new episodes every Tuesday and every Friday. Like and subscribe wherever you have found us so you can join us for the next conversation. We'll see you then.